My golden child brother convinced our parents I was the rich one while he bankrupted them. Then they revealed the family cabin I cherished and I'd sunk thousands into was his safety net, not mine. It all started, as these things often do, with the cabin. Our family cabin. Except, as I've painfully come to learn, the word "our" was doing a lot more heavy lifting for me than it ever did for anyone else in my family, especially my brother, Leo. I'm Sarah, by the way, and I guess I'm here to spill my guts because I genuinely don't know if I'm the monster they're painting me to be, or if I just finally grew a spine after 35 years of being the family doormat. Leo is my older brother, the golden child, the boy who could do no wrong. Or if he did, it was just a charming quirk, a sign of his free spirit. From the time we were kids, the dynamic was set. Leo got the latest toys, the biggest slice of cake, the easiest chores, and the lion's share of mom and dad's attention. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who learned early on that if I wanted something, I had to work for it, and if I needed emotional support, I was better off talking to my teddy bear. It wasn't overtly abusive or anything you could point a finger at easily. It was more insidious, a constant low hum of favoritism that shaped our entire lives. Leo would break a vase, and somehow it would be my fault for leaving it where he could knock it over. He'd fail an exam, and it was because the teacher didn't understand his unique brilliance. I'd get straight A's, and it would be a quick, "That's nice, honey," before the conversation veered back to Leo's latest escapade. The cabin, though, that felt like my place. It was a rustic, slightly ramshackle A-frame nestled by a lake, a couple of hours from the city. My grandparents built it, and it was filled with memories of fireflies, chilly swims, and campfire stories. After Grandpa passed and Grandma couldn't manage it, my parents inherited it. Dad loved it. Mom tolerated it. Leo claimed to love it, but mostly used it as a free party venue when he was younger. I was the one who actually cherished it, who saw the peeling paint and the leaky faucet not as problems, but as projects. From the time I was in my late teens, I was the one driving up on weekends, mowing the overgrown lawn, staining the deck, patching the roof. When I got my first decent job, a good chunk of my disposable income went into the cabin. New appliances when the ancient ones finally gave out. A modern septic system because the old one was an environmental hazard. Even redoing the rickety dock. My parents were always full of praise for my efforts. "Oh, Sarah, you're such a godsend. What would we do without you? The cabin looks wonderful." Leo would occasionally show up, crack open a beer, survey my handiwork, and say something like, "Looking good, sis. Knew you had it in ya." Then he'd disappear with his friends, leaving a trail of empty bottles and muddy footprints for me to deal with. I never asked for money for the materials or my labor. It was a labor of love. I genuinely believed this was our shared family legacy, something we'd all enjoy, something I'd one day share with my own kids, if I had them. My parents always talked about how the cabin would stay in the family for generations. "It's for you and Leo, and your children," Dad would often say, a nostalgic glint in his eye. I clung to those words. A few years ago, Mom and Dad started to slow down. Nothing major at first, just the usual aches and pains of getting older, but it brought the topic of wills and estates to the forefront. They sat me and Leo down one Sunday afternoon. "We're getting our affairs in order," Dad said, looking serious. "We want to make sure everything is handled smoothly and fairly." Mom nodded, patting my hand. "Of course, dear. You've both been wonderful children." I remember feeling a flicker of unease even then. Leo, sitting beside me, had this little smirk, like he already knew the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard. But they assured us, everything will be divided equally. The house, the savings, the cabin. You'll both share. Share. That word again. This assurance, vague as it was, spurred me on. I decided the cabin needed a more significant upgrade. The old sunroom was drafty and termite-ridden. I proposed tearing it down and building a proper four-season room, a place where we could comfortably gather even in winter. It was a big project, tens of thousands of dollars. I presented the plans, the quotes. My parents were enthusiastic. "What a marvelous idea, Sarah. You're so clever," Leo chimed in. "Yeah, sis, go for it. More space for parties." I gritted my teeth at his comment but focused on my parents' approval. They didn't offer to contribute financially, and I didn't expect them to. I took out a personal loan to cover most of it, figuring it was an investment in our future. Meanwhile, Leo's life was a series of dramatic highs and spectacular flameouts. He'd start a new revolutionary business venture every couple of years, funded by, well, I suspected mostly by Mom and Dad. Each one would crash and burn, leaving him with more debt and another sob story. The market wasn't ready, or my partners screwed me over, and each time Mom and Dad would swoop in. "He just needs a little help to get back on his feet," Mom would say, her voice tight if I ever dared to gently question it. "He's got so much potential, Sarah. You're stable, you have a good job. He's still finding his way. He was in his late 30s, for God's sake. When exactly was he going to find his way?" The first major crack in my carefully constructed illusion of fairness appeared about 2 years ago. Leo decided to host a fall fest at the cabin with about 30 of his closest and loudest friends. He didn't ask. He informed. I had plans to go up that weekend myself to do some winter prep, but he brushed me off. It's fine, sis. We'll handle it. I arrived the following weekend to what looked like a frat house after a week-long bender. Trash everywhere, stains on the new carpet in the sunroom I'd just finished paying for, a broken window, and the distinct smell of stale beer and regret. I was furious. I called Mom and Dad, my voice shaking. Mom's response? Oh, dear. Boys will be boys, you know. Leo said they had a bit of a mishap with a rogue football. A rogue football? Indoors? And what about the graffiti on the shed? He probably didn't even see that, Sarah. You know how he gets when he's having fun. Dad mumbled something about Leo promising to clean it up, but when I pressed, it turned out Leo had vaguely said he'd get to it, and then promptly jetted off on a much-needed vacation to Bali, which I later found out Mom and Dad had funded. The kicker? Mom actually said, "Well, Sarah, you're so good at fixing things up there. Maybe you could just sort it out? It's probably not as bad as it looks." I was speechless. I spent the entire weekend seething, cleaning up my brother's mess, repairing what I could. The broken window cost me a few $100s. My brand new sunroom carpet needed professional cleaning. I sent them the bill. They paid it grudgingly, with Mom remarking, "It seems a bit steep, dear. Are you sure it was all Leo's friends?" That incident was a wake-up call. A really, really loud one. I started paying more attention, not just to the grand pronouncements of fairness, but to the little things. The hushed phone calls between Mom and Leo. The way Dad would avoid my gaze when I asked about their finances. The increasingly frequent loans Leo needed. I wasn't trying to be nosy, but a knot of anxiety had taken root in my stomach. The cabin was more than just wood and nails to me. It was my sanctuary, my investment, my legacy. And I started to feel like it was slipping through my fingers. My suspicion truly ignited one afternoon when I was helping Dad sort through some old paperwork in his study. He'd been a bit forgetful lately, and Mom asked if I could help organize his desk. Tucked away in a folder labeled cabin expenses, beneath receipts for roof shingles and property taxes I'd paid, I found a statement for a home equity line of credit on the cabin for a substantial amount. An amount I knew my parents didn't have lying around to repay easily. My blood ran cold. I knew they had paid off the original mortgage decades ago. This was new. And the disbursement? Date was about 5 years prior, right around the time Leo had launched his disastrous artisanal kombucha brewery. My hands were shaking. I casually asked Dad, "Hey, Dad, what's this HELOC on the cabin? I didn't know you'd taken out another loan." He looked flustered, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Oh, that's, just a little something for repairs." "Repairs? I'd done almost all the major repairs myself and paid for them." "What kind of repairs, Dad?" I pressed, trying to keep my voice even. He stammered, "You know, old house, always something." Mom walked in then, saw the paper in my hand, saw Dad's face, and her expression hardened. "Sarah, what are you doing snooping through your father's private papers?" she snapped. "I wasn't snooping, Mom. I found this in the cabin expenses folder. I was just curious." "Well, some things are private," she said sharply, snatching the paper. "It's all under control. We needed to free up some capital for an investment." An investment. Right. The conversation was shut down, but the seed of dread had sprouted. Over the next few months, I became a reluctant detective in my own family. It wasn't hard. My parents, bless their hearts, were not exactly criminal masterminds. Dad, especially, was increasingly frail and sometimes let things slip. Mom was the gatekeeper, fiercely protective of Leo and their secrets. I started by looking at publicly available property records. The HELOC was there, clear as day. Then I remembered Dad sometimes used an old laptop for his banking, and he was notorious for writing down passwords. It felt skeevy, but I was desperate. One afternoon, while they were out, I managed to log into his email. I searched for Leo, loan, money. My heart sank with every email I read. It was worse than I thought. Leo hadn't just received a one-time bailout for his kombucha disaster. It was a pattern, a relentless drain. Emails from Mom to Dad, agonizing over giving Leo just one more chance. Emails from Leo, full of grandiose promises and thinly veiled threats of despair if they didn't help him with his latest sure thing. He'd convinced them to co-sign loans, to cash out investments, to give him advances on his inheritance. He'd painted himself as the struggling entrepreneur, constantly on the verge of a breakthrough, while subtly implying I was flush with cash and didn't need their help. "Sarah's fine. She's got her career, her savings," one email from him read. "I'm the one who really needs a foundation right now." The most sickening part was discovering how he'd manipulated their perception of me. He'd told them I was judgmental of his choices, that I looked down on him. He'd twisted my genuine concern for their financial well-being into an attempt to control them. Mom, it seemed, readily bought into this narrative. Perhaps it absolved her of her own guilt for enabling him. There were emails where Mom would tell Dad, "Sarah doesn't understand the pressure Leo's under. She's always been so practical, as if that were a character flaw." The cabin HELOC was just the tip of the iceberg. The money, From that had vanished into Leo's kombucha sinkhole. But then, a year later, there was another crisis. Leo had gotten involved in some crypto scheme. Surprise, surprise, he'd lost a ton of money. Their money, it turned out. He'd convinced them to take out a second mortgage, this time on their primary residence, the home I grew up in. The amount was staggering. My stomach churned. They were in their 70s with limited income. How could they possibly manage this? This was the investment Mom had vaguely referred to. An investment in Leo's ability to lose money. I felt a wave of nausea. They were risking their own home, their security, for him. And I, the practical daughter who'd poured her own money and sweat into the family cabin, was completely in the dark, still naively believing in fairness. My big sunroom project, the tens of thousands I'd spent, it suddenly felt like I'd been redecorating a house that was already secretly sold. The realization was like a punch to the gut. All those weekends, all that effort, all that love, I'd poured into the cabin. What was it all for if they were just going to let Leo gamble it away or sell it to cover his endless disasters? I needed to confront them, but I wanted to have all my facts straight. I also started meticulously documenting my own expenses on the cabin over the years. Every receipt for materials, every invoice for contract work I'd paid for, like the septic system and the dock and the sunroom. It added up to a horrifyingly large sum, well over $100,000 over 15 years, not even counting my labor. The simmering pot finally boiled over last Christmas. We were all at my parents' house. The atmosphere was strained. Dad seemed more withdrawn than usual, and Mom was flitting about with a forced cheerfulness that set my teeth on edge. Leo, of course, was holding court, regaling everyone with tales of his latest almost success, some app that was going to revolutionize something or other. After dinner, as we were having coffee, Mom cleared her throat. "Now, kids," she began, that overly bright smile plastered on her face. "Your father and I have been doing some more thinking about the future, especially regarding the cabin." My heart hammered in my chest. This was it. "As you know," Dad chimed in, his voice thin, "we're not getting any younger. And the cabin, well, it's becoming a bit much for us to think about managing." Leo leaned forward, an expression of feigned concern on his face. "Whatever you guys decide, I'm here to support you." Liar. Mom continued, "We've realized that with Leo's situation, he needs a bit more stability, a solid asset. And Sarah, you're doing so well, dear. You have your own place, your career." I could see where this was going. I felt the blood drain from my face. "So," Mom said, taking a deep breath, "we've decided that the best course of action is to leave the cabin primarily to Leo in the will. He can decide if he wants to keep it or sell it to give him a fresh start. Of course, Sarah, you'll always be welcome to visit, as long as Leo owns it. And," Dad added, almost mumbling, "if it's sold, the bulk of the proceeds would go to Leo. He needs it more right now." The room went silent. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hall, each tick a hammer blow against my composure. I looked at Leo. He had the audacity to look sympathetic. A little sad even, as if this was some unfortunate but necessary turn of events. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it. After everything. After he'd systematically drained them. After he'd risked their own home. This was his reward? And I was supposed to be grateful for visitation rights to the property I'd practically rebuilt with my own hands and money? I felt a cold rage, unlike anything I'd ever experienced, wash over me. Years of suppressed resentment, of quiet sacrifices, of being taken for granted, all coalesced into a single burning point of fury. I took a slow, deliberate breath. "Needs it more?" I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. "He needs it more? Or is it that he's bled you so dry with his constant failures and manipulations that you're now desperate to sell off every asset you have left to bail him out again?" Mom gasped. "Sarah, how dare you speak to us like that? And about your brother?" Leo jumped in. "Hey, that's uncalled for, Sarah. I've had some bad luck, that's all. You've always been jealous of me, haven't you?" "Jealous?" I almost laughed. "Jealous of what, Leo? Your trail of bankrupt businesses? Your talent for leeching off our elderly parents? The fact that you've convinced them to mortgage their primary home to the hilt to fund your delusions of grandeur? Is that what I'm supposed to be jealous of?" Dad looked horrified. "Sarah, how did I find out?" I stood up, my legs shaking slightly, but my voice was strong. "I stopped being willfully blind, Dad. I started looking. I found the HELOC on the cabin, the one you took out for Leo's kombucha pipe dream. Then I found out about the second mortgage on this house for his crypto disaster. How much is it, Dad? 200,000? 300? Are you even going to have a home left when he's done with you?" Mom was white as a sheet. "This is a private family matter, Sarah. You have no right." "No right?" I almost shrieked. "I have no right to know that the cabin I've poured over $100,000 of my own money into, not to mention 15 years of my life, is being used as collateral for his gambling debts, and then handed to him on a silver platter as if he's earned it. I have no right to know that you're risking homelessness because he can't hold down a job or take responsibility for his own life." I turned to Leo, who was sputtering, trying to interrupt. "And you," I said, pointing a shaking finger at him. You stand there, looking all pious, talking about supporting them. You've done nothing but systematically dismantle their financial security, you parasitic leech. You've isolated them, you've lied to them about me, you've made them believe I'm some uncaring shrew because I don't want to watch them go bankrupt for you. That's not true, Leo yelled. I love Mom and Dad. I've been trying my best. Your best at what, Leo? Conning them? Because you're an A-plus student at that. I pulled out my phone. I have copies of the loan documents, I have emails, I have bank statements showing the transfers to you, Leo. Tens of thousands, again and again. And I have every single receipt for every shingle, every can of paint, every appliance, every contractor I paid for at that cabin. The sunroom alone was nearly $50,000. Do you think I did that so you could sell it and blow the money on your next pathetic scheme? Mom started to cry. Sarah, please. You're tearing this family apart. Tearing this family apart? I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, Mom, this family was torn apart years ago by your blatant favoritism and Leo's insatiable greed. I was just too stupid or too loyal to see it. You talk about fairness? About what Leo needs? What about what's right? What about the fact that you've allowed him to defraud you and, by extension, me? Dad finally spoke, his voice trembling. We thought we were helping him, Sarah. He's our son. And I'm your daughter, I cried, the tears finally coming. The daughter who actually showed up, who actually contributed, who actually cared about preserving something beautiful. And what's my reward? To be told I'm welcome to visit my own investment as long as the golden boy allows it? I looked at Leo. His face was a mask of fury and petulance. He knew I had him, at least on the facts. So this is your grand plan, I said to my parents. Let Leo sell the cabin, take the money, and then what? What happens when he burns through that? Will you sell this house next from under yourselves and move into his squalid apartment? Because that's where this is heading. I took another deep breath, trying to regain some control. My mind was racing. I couldn't let this happen. Not just the money, but the principle of it. The sheer, unbelievable injustice. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice hardening. You are not leaving the cabin to Leo. Not primarily, not at all, until I am repaid every single cent I invested in it. With interest. I have the documentation, and I will place a mechanic's lien on that property so fast it'll make your head spin. If you try to sell it without settling with me first, I will sue you. All of you. Leo scoffed. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Family? I looked him dead in the eyes. You stopped being my family when you decided my hard work and my parents' security were just resources for you to plunder. And you, I said, turning to my parents, you stopped acting like my parents when you decided to sacrifice my future and your own for his bottomless pit of need. Mom was sobbing openly now. Sarah, don't say these things. We love you. Your definition of love is skewed, Mom. Deeply, deeply skewed. I felt a profound sadness wash over me, eclipsing even the anger. This was it. The point of no return. I've spent my whole life trying to be good enough, trying to earn your approval, trying to make up for whatever inadequacy you saw in me compared to St. Leo here, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I fixed your cabin, I fixed your problems, I listened to your complaints about him, and I never asked for anything in return. And this is how you repay me? By essentially telling me that none of it mattered? That my contributions, my sacrifices, were worthless? Dad looked utterly broken. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I want my money back, I stated flatly. From the cabin. Before Leo gets his hands on a penny of it. If you have to sell it to do that, fine, but I get my documented investment repaid first? Over $100,000. I have the spreadsheet, I have the receipts. I'll have my lawyer draw up an agreement. We don't have that kind of money, Sarah, Mom wailed. Not after Leo took it. All? I finished for her. Exactly. So the cabin will have to cover it. Or perhaps Leo can finally get a real job and start paying you back, and then you can pay me back. I looked at Leo. Don't hold your breath on that one, folks. Leo lunged at me then, not physically, but verbally. You selfish bitch. You always wanted everything for yourself. You're just trying to ruin me. Ruin you? I said incredulously. Leo, you're a self-destructing supernova of ruin all on your own. I'm just trying to salvage something. From the wreckage, specifically, the pieces of my life and my finances that you and Mom and Dad have been so careless with. I gathered my purse. My hands were still shaking, but there was a strange sense of calm settling in. The worst had happened. The truth was out, and I hadn't crumbled. I'm leaving, I announced. I'll be in touch through my lawyer regarding the cabin and my financial stake in it. Until then, I don't want to see or hear from any of you. Mom cried out, Sarah, no, it's Christmas. You can't just leave. Watch me, I said, turning my back on them. I walked out of that house, the sound of my mother's sobs and Leo's furious shouts echoing behind me. I didn't look back. The aftermath has been hellish, and yet strangely liberating. The threats and guilt trips started almost immediately. Voicemails from Mom alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations, Emails from Dad, full of remorse but also pressure to reconcile and not be so harsh on Leo. Leo himself sent a string of abusive texts, calling me every name under the sun. I blocked his number. I set up a filter for my parents' emails. I did contact a lawyer. She confirmed that with my documentation of capital improvements, I have a strong case for recouping my investment if the property is sold, or even forcing a sale to get my equity out if they refuse to cooperate. A mechanic's lien is definitely an option. The lawyer also mentioned that what Leo had been doing could potentially constitute elder financial abuse, especially given my parents' declining cognitive awareness, particularly Dad's. That's a path I haven't decided whether to explore yet. It feels like a nuclear option, but then again, what they did to me felt pretty nuclear too. It's been 3 months. I haven't seen them. I've spoken to my dad once, a brief, stilted call where he mostly just sounded tired and sad. Mom refuses to speak to me unless I apologize to Leo and drop this nonsense about lawyers. Apparently Leo is now playing the ultimate victim, telling them I'm trying to make them homeless and destroy his life. The irony is so thick, I could choke on it. Some days, I'm consumed by grief. Grief for the family I thought I had, or at least, the family I kept hoping they could be. Grief for the cabin, which now feels tainted beyond repair, even if I do get my money out of it. It was never about the money. Not really. It was about the love, the acknowledgement, the feeling of belonging, of being valued. And I realize now, I never truly had any of that from them, not unconditionally. Other days, I feel a flicker of pride. I stood up for myself. For the first time in my life, I didn't just swallow the injustice and retreat to lick my wounds. I fought back. I drew a line. It was terrifying, and the fallout is painful. But there's also a sense of clarity. The fog of obligation and hopeful denial has lifted. I see them for who they are, and I see myself more clearly too. I'm not the family fixer, the quiet martyr, anymore. The cabin is still there, a monument to years of my misplaced love and labor. My lawyer sent them a formal letter outlining my claim. Their lawyer responded, vaguely acknowledging my contributions, but disputing the amount and claiming my parents made verbal agreements with Leo that supersede any claims I might have, which is laughable, as my lawyer pointed out. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be ugly. But here's the thing, Reddit. A part of me, a small, nagging voice, wonders if I went too far. They're my parents. They're old. Leo is, well, he's their son, and clearly, they feel some twisted obligation to keep enabling him. Did I destroy my family over a house and some money? Or did I just finally refuse to be a part of a deeply dysfunctional system that was slowly destroying me? Was threatening legal action and essentially cutting them off the right thing to do? Or am I the asshole for blowing up what was left of our family, even if it was built on lies and favoritism? So Reddit, AITA, for threatening to sue my own parents and brother to recoup the money I invested in our family cabin after they revealed their plan to give it all to my golden boy brother, who had already bankrupted them. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more.